Hey, what's up there? It's Yelo Autosports. In this video, I'm just going to be doing a little interior, exterior detailing on a Nissan GTR, as well as doing a window tint on it. Now, I have filmed a little bit of the window tint itself. Unfortunately, I lost the footage. So we're going to cut in towards the end where I just start on the back window, and then we'll show you the full detail. Please enjoy the video. If you think you learned something out of it, make sure that you like and subscribe to the page. I'll have more videos coming. And yeah, let's get right into it. Alright, so the first thing I did before we started with this detail is I did the window tint. Now, most people think of window tint as just in visual appeal, and it really is that. It does make the car look more aggressive as well as make it look more appealing to the eye. However, window film does do a lot more than that. The biggest thing it's going to do for you is the UV rejection, which, if we all know UV, as it passes through glass and it hits your skin, it is a cancerous agent. So window tint can actually help reduce that, and actually does block 99% of the UV that comes through the glass. So that's just one thing. The higher end films, such as the ceramics, also will do some heat rejections. So the nice thing about that is, obviously, if you're sitting in your car, it's summertime, you've got some good heat coming through, the film itself is going to do a little bit of blocking. So many good benefits to window tint, but as most people tend to think about it, is usually for the visual appeal, which understandably so. Now, if you've ever window tinted before, and if you haven't, as you can see, some of the tight spaces back here in cars can get pretty small, especially on the coupes, the two doors, even some of the convertibles like a Miata or a Speedster. Installing a back glass, it takes time, it takes practice, it takes doing it over and over and over. It's all about the reps and the muscle memory. Remember, when you get the film inside the vehicle here, you're gonna get it in there. You get one try not to get any contaminants between the glass and the film, otherwise you gotta do it all over again. So it is tedious, but it is a great skill. If you're an auto detailer, I would suggest, if there's room to learn a second skill, you should pick up window tinting. There's lots of money to be made there, and it's just a great valuable skill that I don't foresee any machines doing it instead of our own hands for quite some time. Anyway, I'll let you go through the rest of this, and then we'll go into the auto detail. Alright, moving on to the detail of this vehicle. Now, this car is pretty clean already. It just had a little bit of dirt just from the regular wear and tear of just driving your car. The first thing I like to do on any vehicle is I'm going to work first on the carpet. So I'll get all the mats out. Now, what I'm using here is called a tornado door handle. This works really well. It works with compressed air, and essentially what it is, it's like a little straw within a little straw, and it spins as you have the compressor shoot out of it. It works really well agitating things and just getting things out of carpet, so it's always the first thing that I'll do. I'll come back, I will vacuum the mat using all my focus and attention. I just trying to pick up most everything that's on the carpet. Now, you got to be mindful that carpet, if it has a lot of sand in it, for example, if it's a vehicle from the west coast to east coast near the beach, sometimes it's going to be nearly impossible to get all of it out. It's just too much sand within it, and so you kind of want to just get it to the point where it looks good, at least from just the outside, from a 1 foot rule. If you're going after every single sand, you might be vacuuming for hours and hours, and you might find that it's not worth the money. So here I'm just using steam. I'm going to clean the badge a little bit. The badge is already pretty clean, but I'm just going to use a nice soft brush. Agitate using all-purpose cleaner. Now, I use a pretty diluted version of the all-purpose cleaner in this case. I tend to go more aggressive with my all-purpose cleaner depending on what the carpet looks like and what it's presenting like. I live in Minnesota, so a lot of our cars here are really salty, have a ton of stains on them, and in that case I'll use more aggressive of an all-purpose cleaner concentration. But in this case here, the car was pretty clean, so we just went with a pretty soft concentration. This one is a 2 to 10, so 2 parts APC to the remainder 8 parts water. This is something that you don't necessarily have to do, but it's just something that I like to do. It just looks nice, it looks clean, it looks uniform, and it's all about the little details, right? So here I just like to make stripes in the carpet, do the same pattern across all 4, 5, or however many mats there are. And it's just a small little detail in the actual interior of the car when the client comes back in. Okay, going over to the interior of the vehicle and doing the actual detailing part, the very first thing that I like to do is I start with the vacuuming. Now what that does for me is it allows me to pick up any big sand or rocks, anything that's just standing right there in front of me, in front of my face. I want to get rid of that first with my first initial vacuuming stage. Now, word of advice, when you're going to use that tip that you have on your vacuum, that tip is generally going to be a hard plastic and it can damage surfaces. So on carpet it's not too big a deal, but when you bring it up near the center console or near the seats, what you want to do is you want to use your supporting hand, so the hand that's not holding the vacuum, and actually use that hand to kind of open up the seats, the perforated areas of the seats, and use that hand to kind of open it up. Now with your other hand that's holding the actual tip of the vacuum, you kind of want to just dab and grab things as you go. So don't swipe it across the surface, otherwise you're going to cause damage, especially on a vehicle like a Nissan GTR. That's such an expensive vehicle. You do not want to swipe that plastic across. So as you can see, I'm kind of just opening it up and vacuuming, picking things up very meticulously. The second part is I come in with compressed air. This allows me to kind of just shoot out everything and kind of get a lot of the things that I was not able to pick up with the vacuum the first time and get those things to come back up to the surface. Now this process can be repeated 2-3 times. Generally twice is good enough for most vehicles, but just be mindful and remember that not all vehicles come to you in the same condition. You need to make sure with the client before they take off from your shop and before you start working that you truly explain to them what you're seeing. So charge accordingly, because sometimes you might have to do 6-7 steps just to get to the reasonable condition that you'd like. Okay, moving on to the outside of the vehicle. You're going to want to use an iron deposit remover or wheel cleaner for most wheels, especially wheels like this that have big brakes and have a lot of brake dust that gets settled onto the wheels. Now be mindful, if you have big ceramic brakes, you do not want to spray that stuff on the actual rotor, so just be mindful not to spray too much product on those specifically, as you can crack the ceramic drum. And so just be mindful, use a nice brush that's clean. Always visually inspect everything that you use before it's going to touch any surface. You have to visually inspect it, just make sure that it's clean. Here I'm going to go on the under barrel, the inside barrel of the wheel, and try to get more grime. Now most of these sport cars that have these giant multiple piston brakes, you're always going to have a ton of brake dust. That's just the way they operate, but it makes it harder for us to clean. But that is the part where we are detailers and we have to put the extra step in making sure we clean all parts of the wheels. Moving on to washing the actual paint of the vehicle and the body of the car. Now I always do one stage where all I do is just use the power washer and the power of the water and gravity itself to push most everything that I can. I'll then come in, do an MDR, mineral deposit remover stage, where I'll spray everything from the door down and get everything off the surface. I will rinse that, and then I will come in with my spray cannon and finally lather the car with a soap. Now what the soap does, it's just going to help pick up anything additional that might have been kind of still settled onto the paint. It's not a mechanical way of removing the surface or anything that's on the surface, but it allows me to do a lot of the cleaning, and it aids me in giving me a lubricant when I go to clean up the surface of the car. One thing I do, I use two different mitts. One mitt only works for the bottom of the car, and my cleaner mitt, generally my newer mitt, that one is only for the top all the way down to about halfway through the door. What I'll do next, which I did not film in this case, is I will clay bar the whole vehicle just to pick up any contaminant that might be stuck on the physical paint itself. Now, as you all know, with clay bar, as your clay gets dirtier, you need to turn that clay over until your whole clay bar is too dirty. You'll generally be able to get through multiple cars before your clay bar is too dirty. Now, there are other options, other alternatives. There is clay mitts that you can use on your hand, as well as clay pads themselves that you can actually put on a DA machine. I always like to come back and do the wheels, clean them by hand. I want to dry them up, and I want to get anything that I might have missed with the brush and get it by hand. Now the last thing I'll do, in this case this was one of the more simple details, more almost of a maintenance detail, is I will always protect the paint with something. So you can either go with wax, sealants. Generally my ceramic coatings are reserved for paint correction first. Since we did not do any paint correction in this case, we're just going with a sealant. This is a Gtechniq sealant, and it is very resistant, makes the surface very nice and hydrophobic, as well as even boosts a little bit of the shine. There it is, it's a full vehicle. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe if you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one.